Officially start. I want to welcome everybody. It is Saturday, October 4th, 2025. The year is really going forward. We are basically into fall. I think this is considered fall, October, November, December. And I really want to welcome back Lisa Sack. I think this is your third time. Is that true, teaching? It's
Yeah.
Lisa's third time. I love her class.
Fourth.
She, fourth time. Oh, great. Fourth time. And Lisa and I had a Zoom not too long ago, and she took me through the class, and it's wonderful. And of course, I said, well, we need to continue this in 2026. And I'm going to turn the class over to Lisa. She will say a little bit about herself and explain the context of the class. So I'm going to sign off, and everybody enjoy.
Thank you, Susan, so very, very much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are around the world. It's lovely to see you all. I'm Lisa Sack, as Susan has said, and I'm here in Brooklyn, New York, where I am a somatic educator, and I also wear the hat of a yoga therapist and an Ayurvedic health counselor. So I bring a lot of different disciplines to this work. And the class that we're going to do today, though, it has a very simple impetus, which is that I had my daughter when I was 40 years old. And so I laughingly say, if my daughter waits as long to have a child as I did, I will be 80 when I have my first grandchild. And so it's very important to me that I'm able to sit comfortably on the floor, knowing that that is something that I would like to be able to do. Of course, it's also going to be important to be able to get up and down off the floor, but maybe we'll do that as another class. So this class is really about how to find comfort in sitting on the floor. So let me adjust my camera here for a moment so that you can see me when I'm sitting on the floor. And everybody, you're welcome to try this with me. There are a lot of different ways that we can sit on the floor. Can everybody see me? You can see me, good. So we can sit kneeling like this. We can sit cross-legged like this. And we can sit in what's sometimes called like a mermaid seat. So I'm going to describe this for people who may be listening and not able to see the video. I'm sitting now with both of my legs to my left. And the idea is that my mermaid's tail is my two legs that are over to the left. But there's also a kind of a more, I'll call it a more extreme version of this position, where I keep my left leg tucked back behind me, but I'm bringing my right leg forward, and my sole of my right foot is resting on the inside of my left thigh, just above my knee. Now, those of you who have seen Tom Hanna's book or read it, you probably recognize this as the starting position for the seated twist, which is the movement that comes at the end of the cat series. Now, when I try to teach this to my students, most people have a really, really difficult time sitting like this. And it isn't really surprising. If you're trying it yourself or even just trying to visualize it, there's a lot that your lower body has to be able to do to sit comfortably. So let's say, starting, for example, with my pelvis, one of my hips is already a little bit hiked, the other one is dropping down. One half of my pelvis is already rotating a little bit forward, the other is moving back. I have to have one of my legs in external rotation. In this case, it's my right leg. I have to have one of my legs comfortably in internal rotation. My knees have to be good enough to bend. My quadriceps have to be long. My hamstrings have to be able to shorten. And let's not even talk about what you have to be able to do with your feet to sit comfortably. That could be a whole separate class. So what we're going to do today is explore kind of approximations of this relationship of your legs, your hip joint, and your pelvis lying on your back, prone, and a little bit in side lying as well. And the goal is to see if you can identify what aspect of this position is really making it challenging for you, And then can we release the contraction patterns that may be present that make it tough to sit in this position? So that's where we're going today. With that said, let me get back up off the floor and come on up. And if everybody would go ahead and get yourself settled, gather any props that you need to be comfortable, including anything for underneath your head. And also at a certain point, you're going to want to have something like a bolster or several pillows that you can stack so that you can bend your knees and rest your legs comfortably over some stacked pillows. So get yourself settled and please come and lie down on your backs. Yep, take your glasses off, always a good idea. If you want me to be able to see you, please do adjust your camera so that I can see you on the mat. Find whatever position is most comfortable for you. So that might be with your legs long, it might be with your knees bent. And as you settle yourself onto the floor, let me just a couple of reminders about the practice, especially for anyone who is relatively new to somatic education. A couple of ground rules. You always want to stay in comfort when you move. So please do not move into discomfort. Because we're working a lot in your hip joint today, and especially if you have any history of either chronic pain or difficulty in your hip joints, please keep your movements small. Approach the practice with a lot of tenderness and gentleness for yourself, and almost, I would say, delicacy, okay? And maybe the last thing to say is please make sure that you keep breathing throughout the practice. Many times we involuntarily hold our breath, especially when we're trying to parse instructions or just figure out what it is that we're trying to do. So do your best to just keep your breath flowing throughout. Because I'm a yoga therapist, I tend to like to work with my breath. I will offer some suggestions, but please, please do what is most comfortable for you. If I'm suggesting a pattern that doesn't work for you, then you breathe as you need to. This is your practice. All right? So settle yourself and let's begin by just noticing how you're making contact with the floor. So we're starting on the floor, lying down on our backs. Knees are bent or your legs are straight. And starting with your feet, notice any differences between the way you feel yourself resting on the ground today. Any difference in weightedness, and especially any difference here in supine in the way your legs are either turning out or turning in. Both of those patterns are really important to be able to sit in that position comfortably. You don't have to fix anything, just notice how you begin. Travel your attention up through your legs, come to your pelvis, and notice the weightedness of your pelvis. Does one half of your pelvis feel heavier than the other? Maybe what you notice is that there's more of a curve in one half of your lower back on one side than on the other. And then continue traveling your attention up your spine. Notice the muscles on either side of your spine, whether one side feels tighter, tauter. And then come up to your head. Notice how your head is resting against the surface underneath you. Notice any difference in the weightedness, whether you feel more of the weight of your head on the left or on the right. Just notice. Check your jaw, soften through your jaw. And then bring your attention to your breath And notice the flow of your breath in and out of your body. You don't have to work hard to take a deep breath here. Just notice maybe the rise of your belly when you inhale and the natural way in which your belly contracts as you exhale. And then over the next few breaths, start to follow your breath from the beginning of your inhale to the end of your inhale. And then from the beginning of your exhale to the end of your exhale. And let your attention ride on the current of your breath. Easy peasy. Nothing forced. So if you can cultivate this kind of a gentle breathing pattern throughout the practice, please do that. And again, just notice if there's any time where you start to hold your breath and allow yourself to keep your breath flowing. So if your legs are long, go ahead and bend your knees, please. And let's just do a little bit of experimenting and sensing how you feel as you begin. So with your knees bent and your feet on the floor, let your knees move to one side, either to the right or to the left, whichever is preferable to you. And then you can let your knees come back up to center. You don't have to do this particularly slowly. You're just really getting a little sense of what kind of movement is available to you right now. And as you bring your knees right and left, do you notice any particular restrictions anywhere in this movement? Are there places where you start to have a sensation of stretch? Just again, notice, what does this movement feel like now at the beginning of the practice? And then finish the exploration, dropping your knees from side to side that you're on, and bring your knees back up to vertical. You could do this with your legs long as well. Then it's more of a question of kind of rolling your legs in and out a little bit as you move. So we're going to start with some explorations of arching and flattening and involving some external and internal rotations. And I want to give a shout out to Astrid, who's in the class today, because some of these movements were things we began to explore in a class that she led a couple of months ago. So thank you to Astrid. So as you're ready, when you take your next in-breath, let your pelvis rock forward so that you create a little arch in your low back and your low back muscles contract. And use your exhale to completely release your low back muscles and come back to neutral. And continue that arching movement on your in-breath. And as you arch, notice if you felt a difference in the weightedness of your pelvis when you were scanning your body just a few minutes ago. Does that weightedness persist in your arch? In other words, do you tend to arch more into one half of your hemipelvis than the other? If you notice that you do arch more into one half of your hemipelvis, one hemipelvis than the other, make that deliberate. So as you continue to arch, letting your weight go into that hemipelvis. If you don't notice a difference, just pick one hemipelvis to arch into. And then finish the one that you're on. And on your next arch, add a little external rotation. We'll call this side one. So as you inhale and arch, let your side one knee drop out to the side just a hint. And feel what that does to your pelvis. And then as you exhale and you release your low back, let your knee come back up to vertical. And some of you have a great idea. You've put your hands on your hip joints, or rather on the front of your pelvis, so that you can really feel the change in the position of your pelvis. So if you'd like to do that, rest your hands on your pelvis. And again, arch and let your side one knee drop out to the side. And then let it come back up to vertical. And you can continue as you do this, you can make this movement bigger if that's appropriate for you. Let your side two knee keep facing the ceiling so that you're not necessarily letting your side two hemipelvis go with you. And as you arch and you externally rotate with your side one, notice how your pelvis has to accommodate that movement if your side two knee stays towards the ceiling. Your side two hemipelvis is going to roll over the top of your thigh bone. And then it's going to settle back onto the floor. Good. And then come to rest and just pause and notice sensation. And then switch sides. So now when you inhale and arch, you're going to arch into your side two hemipelvis. And some of you may realize right away that you want to let your knee drop out to the side so that you add that external rotation. So as you continue to arch, add external rotation just as far as is comfortable. Keep your movements, please, within your comfortable range of motion. Good. And as you continue, you may notice that the more you let your side two knee drop out, the more your side one hemipelvis now has to rotate up and over your thigh bone to accommodate that movement. And as you come back up with your knee, your pelvis will settle back onto the floor. Good. Finish the one that you're on. Notice if it was easier to organize this movement on one side or the other. And then rest. You can extend your legs if you like, or you can keep your knees bent, whichever you prefer. Come back to your breath and take a couple of easy breaths, following your breath from the beginning of your inhale to the end. Same with your exhale. When you're ready, please re-bend your knees, plant your feet on the floor. If you like, your feet could be slightly wider than hips width distance. And take the opposite movement of the arch. So now you're going to flatten. Take a breath in. And with your exhale, engage your abdominal muscles and feel your low back move down towards the floor. Your pubic bone comes up towards your rib cage as your abdominal muscles contract. And then inhale and release your abdominal muscles and feel your pelvis come back to neutral. Good. Take one more flatten just like that. Exhaling, contracting your belly, feeling your low back press into the floor. Inhaling, releasing your abdominal muscles. Good. Now, come back to your side one leg. And the next time you flatten, add a hint of internal rotation. So your side one knee is going to move in towards your midline, just in your hip joint. So you're going to keep your pelvis on the floor as you let your side one knee move in towards your midline. And then when you release your flatten, let your knee come back up to vertical. Good. Do that one more time. So keeping your pelvis stable, but as you exhale and flatten, letting your side one knee move in towards your midline. Just notice if you feel any particular restriction at your hip joint when you do this. You may or you may not. It really depends. It's very different for everyone. And then when you finish the one that you're on, do that a couple of times now on your side two side. So as you exhale and flatten, let your side two knee move in towards your midline, keeping your pelvis on the floor. So if you start to notice that you're letting your pelvis follow along, let it be just in your hip joint to begin with, just to see where you maybe have restriction or limitation, or where you have ease, frankly. Good. Finish the one that you're on. So I know for me personally, and certainly for many people, internal rotation can be very limited if we have tight internal rotators. For example, our tensor fascia lata. It can be limited if we have tightness through our gluteal muscles, even because both of those feed into the fascia that connects from our hips down to our knees. So let's take a little digression into releasing both your TFL and your quadricep muscles and see if that makes a difference in your ability to internally rotate with ease. So, starting with your TFL. If you want to feel what muscles you're working with here, take your hands to your hip points, right on the front of your pelvis. Slide your fingers down a little bit, and then bring your fingers slightly towards the floor, meaning towards your back. And that's where your tensor fascia lata is. Now, take your side one leg and straighten it on the floor. So, part one, take a nice, easy breath in. When you exhale, bend your long leg and bring your knee into your chest. So your foot will actually be up off the floor if that's comfortable for you. If it's not, you're going to modify accordingly. From this position, take a breath in and bring your side one knee out to the side a little bit. So you're doing a little bit of abduction, AB, just a little bit. Now, from this position, on your next exhale, internally rotate your bent knee. So your heel will swing out, your knee will swing in, but you're going to keep your leg in the abducted position and feel the muscle contract under your fingers. Use your next breath to release, place your foot on the floor, and slowly extend your leg. Now, if you have your hands on both sides, you might feel both sides working actually at the same time as you do this. So let's try this once again on your side, one side. With your next exhale, bend your long leg and bring your knee into your chest. Take a breath in and let your knee float out a little bit to the side. So you go into a little abduction. And then as you exhale, bring your knee in towards your midline and your foot away from your midline and feel that tensor fascia lata contract under your fingers. And then slowly use your breath to release the internal rotation. Bring your knee back in and let your leg extend long on the floor. And rest. Take a breath or two. Notice what you're feeling on your side one hip side compared to side two. When you're ready, you're going to repeat this now with your side two leg. So bend your side one knee and let your side two legs stay long. As you're ready, on an exhale, draw your side two leg in towards your chest. So bend your knee. With your in-breath, bring your knee out to the side, abduction, and then as you exhale, internally rotate at your thigh and let your foot move out. And then slowly unwind all of that, breathing as you need to, come out of the internal rotation, the abduction, and then plant your foot on the floor and let your legs slide long. Take a breath. Please remember to keep these movements as small as is necessary for you to be comfortable. And then once again, next exhale, draw your long leg in towards your chest. Inhale to abduct, bringing your knee away from your midline. From that position, exhale, internally rotate and let your foot go away from your midline. Your knee comes in. Feel the contraction through your tensor fascia lata. And then slowly unwind out of the internal rotation, the abduction. Let your foot come to the floor and then slide your leg long and rest. You can extend both legs now if you like, and sense and feel. Notice now how your pelvis is making contact with the floor. Notice sensations in your hip joints on both your side one side and your side two side. Notice the way your legs are on the floor now. Has anything changed from when you first lay down in terms of the degree of internal and external rotation that you perceive when your legs are long? And then please grab your bolster or your pillows, and you're going to bend your knees and place your bolsters under your bent knees. So you're going to have your feet touching the floor so that your back of your thighs are resting on the pillow completely. So now, and you want to just notice how much support you have. Well, it's really up to you. Ideally, your feet would be on the floor so that when you release we're going to work with your quadricep muscles now, you can completely relax and let your foot come to the floor. So in this position, you can continue to work with your side one and side two legs. So coming back with your attention to your side one leg, with your toes more or less pointed, kind of straight in front of you. When you take your in-breath, straighten your side one leg. And as you straighten your knee, keep the back of your thigh against your support and feel your quadricep muscle contract. And then very slowly release. Take as many breaths as you want to slowly bend your knee. And then repeat that one more time. So you are straightening your side one leg only as far as is comfortable. You don't have to straighten all the way to contract your quadricep muscle, and then slow bend your knee and feel that muscle begin to lengthen. And then you decide which direction you want to do next. So depending on which is more familiar to you, either turn your leg in so that your heel moves out and your toes drop in towards your midline. Or if you're more comfortable externally rotate, meaning turn your toes out and your heel in. So decide which one feels more comfortable for you, and either from an internally rotated position or an externally rotated position, now straighten your knee. Just as far as is comfortable. So now you're working with different fibers of your quadricep muscle, and then slowly release. And then one more time. Again, you have decided whether it's best to start with internal rotation or external rotation. Do a second repetition, straightening your knee, and then letting your legs slowly release that contraction. Pause and take a breath. And then do the opposite. So if you were just turning your leg in, now turn your leg out. So your toes will point away from your midline and your heel will be more towards your midline, or the opposite if you were externally rotated to begin. And then do 2 repetitions here. Again, straightening your leg either with internal rotation or external rotation. Keep the back of your thigh against your support. The reason for that is that as soon as you lift your leg away from support, then you're starting to really engage your psoas muscle, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a different experience. And right now you're focusing on releasing any contraction through your quadricep muscles. Do that one more time. And then rest. And notice how the front of your thigh feels on your side one leg compared to your side two leg. And before you do your side two leg, some of you are doing a lovely thing where you're actually palpating a little bit. So bring your fingers to your side two thigh and just notice if you squeeze a little bit, what is the quality of the muscles there before you do these releases. And then with your toes pointed more or less in a neutral position. So your leg is neither rotated open or rotating internally. Straighten your leg on your next inhale, keeping the back of your thigh against your support. Feel the contraction through your quadricep muscle. And then slowly release. And then repeat that one more time. So I notice that some of you are both bending your knee and taking your thigh away from the support. So when you do that, that's a beautiful movement, particularly for releasing contraction through the front of your hip flexor, your psoas muscle, less so for releasing your quadricep muscle. If you want to focus on your quadricep muscle, keep your thigh against your support and just straighten your knee, and then slowly rebend your knee. And you can notice the difference. So if you've been doing both, notice the difference. Now, you decide which is your more familiar direction with your side two leg. Is it more familiar for you to roll your leg in, or is it more familiar for you to roll your leg out? So do the one that is more familiar for you. So either have your leg internally rotated or externally rotated, and then from that position, straighten your knee only as far as is comfortable, and then slowly bend. And you can repeat that one more time. Just move at your own pace and breathe. When you finish the one that you're on, rest for a moment. Make sure you completely let go. You know, sometimes when we do movements where we do multiple repetitions without even realizing it, we don't necessarily completely allow ourselves to relax at the end of the movement. So make sure you let yourself completely relax. And then find the opposite rotation pattern for your side two leg. So if you're externally rotated, now you'll internally rotate, and vice versa. And when you set yourself up, when you inhale, straighten your knee, and then slowly release that contraction. Come to complete rest. Take an extra breath in between to make sure you let yourself relax. And then one more time. As you straighten your knee, you are contracting now really more of the outer sort of fibers of your quadriceps. You might feel that more on what we would call the lateral side of your thigh, away from your midline. If your leg is internally rotated, you might feel it more on the inside of your thigh if your leg is externally rotated. And then come to rest. Take a moment. You can palpate your thigh again. Just notice if there's any change. There might be, but there might not be, and that's okay too. Take a couple of breaths. Feel the reverberation of those movements throughout your soma. And then slide your pillows or your bolsters out from under your knees and come back to a bent knee position. You can have your feet a little bit wider than hips width distance if that's comfortable for you here. And let's see, what did that do when you try to flatten now and internally rotate? So come back to your side, one leg, take an easy breath in and out. And then on your next exhale, flatten your low back, engage your abdominal muscles, and internally rotate your side, one leg. Let your knee come in towards your midline. Just notice, does it feel any different? And then release your flatten and bring your knee back up to face the ceiling. Good. So you're going to continue to repeat this movement a few times. As you repeat, start to let your pelvis come along. So your side two knee can stay up towards vertical for the time being. And if you want to place your hands again at your hips, what you'll notice perhaps is that as you exhale and flatten and your side one knee comes in towards your midline, maybe you feel more of your weight go into your side two hemipelvis and you feel your side one hemipelvis lift away from the floor. And both halves of your pelvis are going to roll over the tops of your thigh bones. And then slowly release and come back to neutral or your new neutral. And then one more time on this side, flattening on your exhale, internally rotating with your side one leg and allowing your pelvis to come along as much as is comfortable for you. You can almost even think about your knee moving down towards your opposite hip, opposite foot. Yeah, it's like your thigh, the whole thing moves on a kind of an arc. And then finish this movement that you're on. Come to rest for a moment. You can straighten your legs if you like, for sure. And notice what you're sensing and feeling through your side one hip joint, all the way down through your legs into your feet even. Breathe. When you're ready, please bend your knees and you're going to go to your side two side. So you know the movement now, so I'll just repeat it once and then you can play. When you exhale, you're flattening and now letting your side two knee move in towards your midline. So you're internally rotating in your side two hip joint. You can do it the first time, keeping that movement in your hip joint. And then as is appropriate for you, allow your hip to actually follow that movement, only again as far as is comfortable. So you're flattening as you internally rotate. Notice how the weight shifts through your pelvis, more now into your side one side as your side two hemipelvis moves away from the floor following that internal rotation. And then finish the one that you're on. And come to rest. Rest again in whatever position is most comfortable for you. So that could be your legs long or your knees bent. Give yourself several breaths to tune in to the effect of those movements. Noticing how your pelvis is resting on the floor, noticing the positioning of your legs, whether they're long or they're bent. Take an extra breath or two. All right, so let's add another dimension. So bend your side one knee, please, and keep your side two leg long. So with your arms resting down by your side, bring your attention now to your side one waist. Take a breath in, and when you exhale, bring your side one hemipelvis and armpit closer together. So you're finding a little lateral flexion shortening through your side one side, letting your head move as it wants to in response to that change of your spine. And then use your in-breath to release and come out of that lateral flexion. Good. And repeat that movement again. Notice as you do that, what does your pelvis want to do? So for some of us, our pelvis wants to really arch as we do that. If you notice that your pelvis wants to do a particular movement as you try to side bend, make that conscious. Do it deliberately. And then after you've done it deliberately, the next time you find this side bend, think about pivoting on your sacrum so that your pelvis really stays in contact with the floor and you're using the muscles of your side waist to contract. So one more time, take your breath in, and when you exhale, bring your armpit and your hip closer together on your side one side. Let your head follow. You might notice your side two leg lengthen. You could definitely do this on your side if that is a more comfortable position for you. And then finish and come to rest. All right, so let's add another dimension here. When you take your breath in, and when you exhale again, find your side curl on your side, one side. And this time, let your knee internally rotate. So your bent knee is going to come in towards your midline, and you're going to keep that side bend with the internal rotation. And then slowly bring your knee back up to vertical as you release the lateral flexion. Good. Try that one more time. Using your exhale to bring your hip and your armpit closer together, adding the internal rotation, letting your head move as it wants to, and then slowly making your way out of that, unwinding it. Okay. Adding one more dimension. Remember, thinking back to that seated position, we're looking for approximations of that movement in different positions. So once again, find your side bend, bringing your side one armpit and hip closer together. Your side one knee is internally rotating. Now roll your side two foot out. So your toes are going to move out, your heel move in, and then bend your side two leg and slide your side two heel up towards your pelvis. Here you are. You're in an approximation of that seated position. And then slowly straighten your side two leg first. Breathe as you need to. Feel your pelvis start to roll back onto the floor. Your knee will come up towards vertical, and you'll release the side curl. Good. And then try that one more time. Exhaling into your side curl with internal rotation. Externally rotating your side two leg, and then drawing your heel up towards your pelvis. And then slowly letting that release. Good. Pause and notice when you finish. Now, try the opposite movement with your legs. So come into the side curl again on an exhale. But this time, let your side one leg externally rotate. So your knee is going to move out. Good. You know the pattern. Internally rotate your long side two leg. Bend your knee and draw it up towards your pelvis. And then slowly slide your side two leg long. Feel the weight of your pelvis move back into contact with the floor. Your knee comes up and you release the side bend. Beautiful, everybody. Go ahead and take that one more time. This time using external rotation with your lateral flexion. And then internally rotating your side two leg and drawing it up. So if you know the cat series, it's another way of coming into inversion, eversion. Slowly release. And if you don't, that's fine. You just have to have your experience. When you finish the one that you're on, come to rest. Straighten your bent knee and just pause again and be aware of sensation. Notice now what you're feeling through your whole side, one side, from your shoulder down to your hip, through your hip joint, into your leg, and on your side two, side two. All right, so your brain knows where we're going. You won't do quite as many preparatory repetitions. Bend your side two knee. And when you're ready, first find your side curl. So take a breath in. And as you exhale, now you're bringing your side two, hip and armpit closer together. And then slowly release. Good. And then I'm going to leave it up to you to decide which way would you like to move your side two knee first. Do you feel called to externally rotate first rather than internally rotate, or do you feel called to internally rotate? This is how you start to make your practice your own by paying attention to your own direction of ease and working with that to release that pattern so that you can try to do something new. So you may be playing with just side curling and either externally rotating or internally rotating. When you're ready, add your side one leg into the equation. So if you are externally rotating with side two, your side one leg rolls in and then you draw your heel up. If you're internally rotating, your side one leg rolls out. Good. Do one more repetition in whichever direction you chose to do first. Really take your time to come out of it so that you feel the release of each individual component. You feel the release of the rotation pattern in your side one leg. You feel your pelvis settle back on the floor. You feel the release of the rotation pattern through your side two leg, and then you rest. So do the opposite. If you haven't already done the opposite, do a couple of repetitions. Again, letting your head move as it wants to. And in fact, letting even parts of your torso, you may feel called to find more external rotation through one arm as you play with these movements. So let this move into your torso. Yes, we're focusing primarily on what's happening in your pelvis and at your hip joints, but as you know, it's all connected. So let the movements travel up through your soma as they want to, and then finish the one that you're on and come to rest. Rest in whatever position is comfortable for you. Either legs long or your knees bent. And sense and feel. How do you feel your pelvis resting on the floor now? How do you sense the relative rotation of your two legs? What are you feeling at your hip joints? And then before we move on to something in the side lying position, bend your knees one more time, please. And come back to that windshield wiper motion with your knees. So you are internally rotating with one leg, externally rotating with the other. Your knees are moving to one side and then to the other. And notice how this movement feels now. How does it feel now after what you just did? Is there a little bit more ease? Maybe yes, maybe no. Check it out. Good. And then finish the set that you're on. Set meaning allowing your knees to move right and then left and come back up to, or left and then right and come back up to center. Take a breath or two. And then come to lie on one side, please. When you come to lie on your side, you want to have adequate support under your head so that your head stays in line with your spine. And it's, we call this our straight back chair position. So it's your head is directly above your sacrum and your knees are bent, maybe to 90 degrees, maybe slightly less. Really, it depends on what is comfortable for you. You can have your arm. Some of you have your arm underneath your head and a pillow. So really you decide, but your shoulders are stacked and your pelvis is stacked as well. So this next movement is kind of the mirror for the release for your tensor fascia lata that you did earlier. This one's going to focus more on releasing your outer hip muscles. So take your top leg, and if it's comfortable for you, let it nestle behind your bottom knee. So it's like your knees are spooning. Think of it that way, if that's comfy. Okay. Now, this is a series of movements that combines extension, which is the movement that happens when our leg swings back behind us when we walk, abduction, where our leg is, your leg is going to move towards the ceiling, and some external rotation. So this is a powerful movement. So please keep it small, especially to begin with. You can always grow it if it feels comfortable for you. Okay. So let's learn it in parts. Part one, take your breath in and slide your leg that is nestled behind your bottom knee back behind you just a little bit. So your foot moves behind you and your thigh moves behind you, and your pelvis is going to stay stable. There's extension. On your next breath, lift your bent leg away from the floor. So this is your top leg, not your bottom leg, the one that's on the floor. That's right. The one that was spooning behind is the one that's lifting. And as you lift it away from the floor, also bring your knee up towards the ceiling. So you're adding a little external rotation, and then slowly release the external rotation, release the abduction, and let your knee come back to spoon behind your bottom leg. You're releasing the extension. Good. And then let's try that again. Be super gentle with this. It's very powerful. And you're going to get plenty of contraction, even with a very small movement. So again, as you inhale, slide your top leg slightly back behind you. Notice that where you create contraction in your gluteal muscles and maybe even a little your low back. With your next breath, lift that leg away from the floor towards the ceiling, and then externally rotate. Bring your knee up towards the ceiling and your foot will sort of drop towards the floor a little bit. And then release the external rotation. Release the abduction as your leg comes back towards the floor, and then release the extension by letting your legs slide forward to snuggle behind your bottom knee. Good. One more time. Inhale to extend, moving your top thigh back behind you. Use your exhale to lift and externally rotate. So your knee comes up towards the ceiling, your foot drops, feel the contraction in your gluteal muscles. Keep your pelvis stable, and then slowly let that go and come to rest. Take a breath and completely relax. Come onto your backs, please, for a moment. As you come onto your back, notice how you feel your hip that was facing the ceiling. How is that half of your pelvis now resting on the floor? Breathe. If you're more comfortable staying on your side, that's okay too. But in a moment, you're going to switch sides. So when you're ready, roll onto the side that was just facing the ceiling. You're coming into that straight back chair position, and you're going to spoon your top knee behind your bottom knee. I don't know if spooning is an Americanism, but it's like if you think of two spoons that are nestled together, your knees are one behind the other. Okay, so as you're ready, take your in breath to slide your top leg slightly behind you. And then you can use your exhale to lift it away from the floor, tiny, and then externally rotate. Let your knee come towards the ceiling and your foot move towards the floor. Be gentle, and then slowly release that whole pattern. Once your leg touches down, completely relax, sliding your knee back in behind your bottom leg. Take a breath. And then repeat that one or two more times, depending on how slowly you're moving. Finding a little extension, and then adding abduction, lifting your bent leg, and then external rotation at your hip joint. Keep your pelvis as stable as you can as you do this, meaning stacked, so that you have to create this movement using the muscles, your outer hip rotators. Good. And then finish the one that you're on if you want to do one more. Remember, you can have a whisper of movement here. It never has to be a big movement for you to get benefit. As soon as you move, even if it's just a lightening, you create contraction in your muscles. And then the real magic happens on the slow release. Slowly make your way onto your back for a moment and sense and feel. Notice again how your pelvis is connecting to the floor. how you feel your legs from your hip joint all the way down to your feet. How you're sensing the relative amount of rotation through your legs. And then when you're ready, make your way on to your belly, please. And let your head be in whatever position really is most comfortable for you. So if you feel most comfortable with your head turned to one side, turn your head to one side. You could stack your hands underneath your forehead if that is comfortable for you. Some of you may really prefer to have some kind of a support even under your belly. So do whatever you need to be comfortable here. Some of you might also like to have a little bit of support under your ankles. So you can play with any of those adjustments just to see what makes you feel most comfortable in the prone position. And we'll explore just another couple of movements here. So to begin, let your pelvis rock from side to side in prone. So you're just doing a little bit of what we would call active means whereby you're noticing what kind of movement possibilities you have here. And as you let your pelvis rock from side to side in the prone position, follow what's happening at your pelvis all the way down through your feet. So you might notice that as you rock onto one half of your pelvis, that your foot on that side turns slightly inward. You might notice that as you rock and your pelvis on the side that's lifting away from the floor, your leg might go and your toes might turn out a little bit. So again, you've got patterns here. It can be really tricky when we come to a different position to try to figure out what does internal and external rotation mean when I'm lying on my belly. So just play with this a little bit so you can feel how the rotation through your pelvis is going to change the rotation through your legs right down to your feet. Good. And then come to rest and let your weight come into, for this, we'll do right and left just to make it a little bit simpler. Let your weight come into your left hemipelvis. And that may externally rotate your right leg just a little bit. If it's comfortable for you, take your right ankle and rest it on top of the back of your left ankle. So your right knee will bend a little bit out to the side and your ankle is going to rest. Your right knee is going to rest on top of your left ankle. So the movement you're going to play with is one to see if it helps you to find the aspect of rotation through your pelvis here. All right, so when you're ready, take a breath in. And as you exhale, bring your foot, your right foot that's resting on your left ankle, up towards the ceiling, just slightly short of vertical. So your foot is going to come towards the ceiling. And notice what happens at your pelvis as you do that. And then slowly let your foot come back to rest on the back of your ankle. If your foot doesn't rest comfortably on your ankle, feel free to put a pillow there so you have some more support. So do that movement one or two more times and see if you notice that when you lift your foot towards the ceiling, your right pelvis starts to move towards the floor as you internally rotate. Maybe this movement allows you to sense that a little bit. Maybe it doesn't. So just notice what you sense. And you can keep it as small as you want. You don't have to lift up anywhere close to having your foot facing the ceiling. Just looking for the connection between the movement that your foot is doing, how it travels up through your leg, creating a little internal rotation and the effect that it has on your pelvis. Good. Come to rest. Now, you can turn this into a variation of our cat 3. So if it's comfortable for you, take your head, turn it to the right. Your right elbow will stay bent and your left arm can come down by your side. And we'll do this in parts. So take a breath in. When you exhale, bring your right foot towards the ceiling. Sense how perhaps your right hemipelvis moves towards the floor. And then on your in-breath, lift your long left leg, your right elbow, and maybe even your head. So this is a variation of cat 3. And then slowly release, letting your back muscles decontract, and then releasing your right foot to rest back on the back of your left ankle. Good. And then try that one more time. So use your exhale first to lift your right foot towards the ceiling. And then use your in-breath to come into cat 3. Lifting your long left leg as you lift your head, your elbow, and your hand. You don't have to lift everything, by the way. You could keep your head on the ground. You could keep your elbow on the ground. You can decide how much back extension you'd like to put into the movement and slowly release. Once your foot touches down, let your right leg straighten and let both legs rest on the floor. So you can take your right foot off of the back of your left ankle. And you can bring your head to center. Do that slowly. Bring your left arm up and use your hands to press so that you can turn your head to the center. Good. Breathe here for a moment. Again, notice how you feel your pelvis resting on the floor. And some of you are already getting ready to do this work on your second side, which is fine. So now you're going to bend your left knee and rest your left ankle on your right, the back of your right ankle. Again, use support as you need to. Feel how your left hemipelvis has lifted away from the floor a little bit, probably to do that movement. When you're ready, on an exhale, bring your left foot up towards the ceiling and perhaps notice if this helps you feel a little rotation right up into your pelvis so that your left hemipelvis moves towards the floor. And then slowly release. And then just for the sake of time, you can go right into the cat 3 variation here. So now you have your left elbow bent, your right arm can be down by your side. And you'll start by exhaling and bringing your left foot towards the ceiling. And then on your in-breath, lift your head and your long leg and your elbow, as much of the cat 3 that you would like to do, and rest. And repeat that one more time. Good. Once you come out of this movement, take your time, no need to rush. Let your head come to center if that feels comfortable. Stack your hands underneath. And we'll do one last movement here to help with your hamstrings, actually, to bring a little bit of release to them. So in this prone position, let your feet widen a little bit, wider than hips width distance, if that's comfortable. If you have blankets over you, the movement you're going to be doing is bending your knees. So just make sure that the blankets are not going to inhibit your movement. And then when you're ready, as you breathe in, bend both of your knees so that your feet lift away from the floor just a couple of inches and feel your hamstrings contract as you do that. And then slowly lower. Take your time. Yep, and you might notice that you have some shaking coming down, and you know that means, as one of our dear teachers, Mary Poxon, would say, you hit the SMA jackpot. So let's add on a little bit here. On your next in-breath, again, bend both of your knees just enough to lift your feet up off the floor, maybe a couple of inches. And then move both of your feet to the left. And then start to bring your feet up towards the ceiling. So you're creating kind of a little half circle here. And then once your feet are facing the ceiling, slowly let them release down towards the floor. So you're letting your hamstring muscles slowly decontract as you take your time to let your feet come to the floor. And then try it in the opposite direction. Turn your head as you need to. Absolutely. Once again, bend your knees so that your feet come up off the floor just a few inches. Now swing your legs to the right. And then continue letting your feet come up towards the ceiling. So you're creating a little semicircle with your feet. And as you do that, you're contracting through your hamstrings and rotating your pelvis. And then once your feet are facing the ceiling, slowly, slowly let your feet lower back down to the floor. Rest when you come down. If this is creating any tension in your low back, make your movement smaller. So you can lift your circle can be very small. In fact, let's try a full circle now, one in each direction. So bend your knees slightly, swing them let's swing them to the right to begin this time, just for a change of pace. Start to move your feet up towards the ceiling, and then continue to let your feet swing to the left, and slowly let your legs extend as your feet come back to the floor. That's it. Take your time. Rest when you finish. And then when you're ready, repeat, this time taking the circle in the opposite direction. Good. Finish the one that you're on. Come to rest. Tune into the sensation that you feel through the backs of your thighs. And then when you're ready, roll onto your backs, please. We're just about at the end of our time together. So take a few rounds of, first, just a few rounds of arching and flattening here. So you can do it with your legs straight or your knees bent, really whichever you prefer. So when you inhale, your pelvis will tip forward. And when you exhale, you release your low back muscles to come to neutral. And then in neutral, breathe in and exhale and contract your belly. And as you take just a few rounds of arching and flattening, notice how this movement feels now at the end of your practice. Is it different? And then one last time, let your knees move right to left in that windshield wiper motion. See how this movement feels now. And if you started the class by actually trying to sit in that position, that sort of mermaid position with one leg behind you and one leg back, come up to sit and just try it on and see if it feels any different. It may not, but it may. So you want to give yourself a moment to just sense how it feels to try to come and sit back in that position. Almost all of us have one side where we feel very comfortable or more comfortable sitting in this position, and the other one is not so comfortable. So you can try both and just see what you notice. Rome wasn't built in a day, so maybe we'll do another class where we actually get to the point where we sit up in the twist and play with that. So I want to thank you all for your really kind attention today. I hope you found that a valuable exploration. And for those of you who can stay on, I really look forward to hearing what you have to say. I'm going to turn things back to Susan. Susan.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa, so much. That was really fabulous. Um, and ooh, I had a big difference when I first did the sitting. I could do it, but I had to be careful and I had to support myself. And at the end, I could get into it easier. I didn't really have to support myself with my hands, although I was more comfortable when I did. I just loved everything about it. Please feel free to stay for discussion, questions, confusions, ahas. And so with that, I am going to officially end today's class. I'm going to end the recording, but you feel free to stay and participate in our discussion. Thank you all very much, and thank you. That was a fabulous class, Lisa.